Everyone thinks it's not going to be them until it is. This is why you should not travel to the US. And if you can do me a big favor, TikTok basically killed the last video, so do your things. 3 days ago, Donald Trump invoked a wartime power of the presidency created in the 18th century, the Alien Enemies Act. This allows Donald Trump to legally and without evidence or trial or due process arrest, hold, imprison, take your property, and deport you. And this law is effectively unlimited. It allows the president to effectively pick and choose who is an enemy of the USA and do this to with very little recourse and no ability of the courts to individually act on cases. This is why immediately a judge jumped in and put a halt to this, stating quite clearly the US is not in a war and that this should be paused for 14 days. Problem is, the Trump administration already had 3 planes in the air at least that we know about, and 2 of those landed in El Salvador, which is currently run by an insane far-right leader named Bukele, who is an ally of Donald Trump. He has spent the last couple of years putting tens of thousands of people into for-profit prison complexes, and that's what we're seeing here. Donald Trump paid the government of El Salvador to take deportees that had no due process into a supermax prison in El Salvador. He did this illegally against judges' orders that asked him to immediately stop and turn around any planes, and it got worse from there, because this was not the end of the story. The Trump administration came out strongly that they were not breaking any rules, and that actually the president had complete authority, as this was a foreign affairs matter, the second those planes crossed into international waters, and that no longer did the judge have any ruling or effect, effectively saying that outside of the USA, only the president's word is what matters, and his interactions with foreign leaders are not the business of any court. So what are all these hundreds and hundreds of people supposedly have done? Well, the Trump administration is arguing that they're all terrorists, but we already know that at least 4 people are confirmed to just have been random people picked up. 2 of them just because they had literal tattoos. 1 of them just literally a random rose tattoo. The other, a bunch of random tattoos, including a clock with the time of his daughter's birth on it. Keep in mind, even if they were terrorists, it wouldn't matter, because we have a court system that is meant to exist to allow these people to be done in a court system that rules that they are guilty or not. We are not in a system that just a king declares you are a criminal and that is it. You are judged, done, finished. We have people being shaved here, put into a for-profit prison in another country who have not gone through any trial. They have not been charged with any crimes. They were just singled out by Donald Trump, grabbed, pulled on a plane, and then sent to El Salvador, where the government of the United States is paying for this to happen, is subsidizing a for-profit camp system. And this is what's happening. This could be you. And you might say, well, you know, must have been doing something. They must have been doing something. But there is no evidence of that. There is no due process. There is no trial. There is no nothing. There's just this. This is what's happening. And this gets significantly worse when you realize it's not just people who look like Latino gang members being picked up. No. It's happening to Europeans too. Take the case of Fabian Schmidt, a German who is a permanent US resident, and he, just for your information, is a white guy. Fabian was stripped naked, forced into a cold shower, then placed in a chair and held without food or water. He stayed there until he collapsed and had to be brought to a hospital. Schmidt was flying back from the EU, where he normally lives in Nassau, New Hampshire, with his partner and child. Or take Rebecca Burke, who is a comic artist who was just going to the US for a backpacking trip. When she returned with the corrected paperwork, she was detained for more than 10 days. They said that her couch crashing was going to be her illegally working in the United States. Her father said, "She's been over there for 10 days now. We haven't got any clear timeline for her release. I can't really understand why someone, a tourist, would be incarcerated and locked up. It's like we're living in a nightmare that we can't wake up from. She's in this orange prison outfit. She just feels so isolated and desperate. I want to come home," she says. We knew for a long time in advance of Trump being inaugurated that his plans were for immigration, but that didn't enter our minds with respect to Becky. She was going on a 4-month backpacking trip. We wouldn't even think of her as an immigrant. Or the 8 days in solitary confinement that Jessica Bruce did, where she spent weeks in ICE custody and only recently returned to Europe. One of her friends who was in contact with Bruce during this experience said, It was like a horror movie. They were screaming in all different rooms. After 9 days, she said she went so insane that she started punching the walls, and then she's got blood on her knuckles. The prison then called in a psychiatrist to prescribe antipsychotic drugs for her. She refused to take them. She was held in the Mesa Detention Center, another for-profit prison camp. Lukas Schleif also spent 10 days in custody because he misunderstood what the border guard said because his English wasn't so good, and misunderstood where he lived to where he was staying in the US. If you honestly don't think that you're going to be swept up in this massive MAGA tide going after everything that is different and foreign, you are fooling yourself. The ICE has currently, by Trump's orders, daily quotas for deportations. They need to make their numbers. Anyone who has driven a car and has experienced cops, especially in places where you know that they have ticket quotas, knows that they will make those quotas exist. What do you think happens when they need to make deportation quotas exist? They need to find bodies to deport. And don't get smart. They are monitoring hundreds of websites with AI to figure out if anyone has anything remotely disloyal to the Trump regime. You're not going to outsmart them. They will find something, and if they don't, they will make something up. Just as they have for the people who have already been disappeared and deported. And you're not special. You could be the next one.